Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. Former unified super featherweight champion Michaela Mayer will be taking on Italy's own Silvia Bortot on the undercard of Smith versus Eubank 2 in the United Kingdom. Unbeaten up-and-comer Lauren Price has also been added to the card, and we'll talk about that in a separate video.
Michaela Mayer will enter her third weight class in as many bouts.
The former unified junior lightweight titleist is confirmed to face Italy's Silvia Bortot in a scheduled 10-round bout above the junior welterweight limit on September 2nd at the AO Arena in Manchester, England. The matchup was confirmed on Monday by Boxer as part of a Sky Sports box office show headlined by the Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. rematch.
She's back in the UK.
She's not waiting around for anybody, and I can't say as I blame her. Many of the big names anywhere in between 130 and 135 pounds are off doing other things, spoken for with other matches on other sides of the street, whereas Michaela's getting, while the getting is good, at another weight.
She's moving up.
As I stated in a previous video, I believe the end game here is a Natasha Jonas fight. Natasha Jonas, who holds the IBF title at 147. Michaela is making her way up there.
Which would explain why she's been fighting in the United Kingdom so often. She had the Baumgartner fight there, the more recent Lucy Wildheart fight, now this fight.
I think it's all build-up. I think it's all a prelude to a Natasha Jonas showdown.
That's what I think it is.
Yet another Brit. Another one of Boxer's Valkyries, a boxer fighter in Caroline Dubois, who's been vying for a fight with Michaela Mayer, very much barking up the wrong tree. She's set to return to action very soon. And so long as Michaela maintains this relationship with Boxer, with Sky Sports, that fight is a possibility, albeit a distant possibility in a distant future.
That can happen.
In addition to fighting in a third weight class, Michaela Mayer fights in the United Kingdom for the third time straight as well. Los Angeles native fights out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, but has trained in Las Vegas for a fight card slot that was on her radar for the past few weeks. Bortot will make her UK debut and fights outside of her native Italy for just the third time. The career junior welterweight is coming off a 10th round split decision defeat to unbeaten Flora Pill this past May in Padua, Italy.
So what do we need to know about Silvia? What is Michaela up against?
Silvia Bortot, who sports a professional record of 11 wins with 2 losses and 1 draw, 3 knockouts.
Having been knocked out at least once in 14 professional contests, 14 professional bouts, to Michaela Mayer's 18 wins with 1 loss, no draws.
5 knockouts. Michaela Mayer is some years younger than Silvia Bortot. Silvia's 38, whereas Michaela is 33.
5 years younger, and she's a tall drink of boxing with the kind of physical dimensions to really fill out at super lightweight or junior welter, as it's sometimes referred to, 140 pounds.
Having reviewed the tape on Silvia Bortot, her fight with Flora Pili, I see why they landed on this particular opponent, the ideal opponent for Michaela Mayer to make her super lightweight debut and make it safely.
Silvia's a scrappy fighter.
Very scrappy and not particularly fundamentally sound. She's got leaky defense, a leaky guard. You can slip punches in there.
She can be counted.
Punches are not defensible punches, defensible shots. You can see the openings when she does let her hands go.
Michaela Mayer, being as tall as she is, as long and limber, she doesn't need to be right up on Silvia to touch her, to counter those punches over the top.
She makes a lot of mistakes pulling back in a straight line. You don't want to do that, because if the fighter opposite the ring has enough height and enough length, you pull back in a straight line, they can catch you on your way out. They can catch you with a backhand.
Straight right hand in the case of Michaela Mayer,
who fights out of the orthodox stance, not dissimilar from what we just saw in the Jared Anderson versus Charles Martin fight. Jared Anderson's propensity to pull back in a straight line to get out of the way of punches, not realizing you might be able to pull that with shorter and stumpier fighters than yourself. But with those tall guys, with those long guys, they can smack you across the face on the way out or bring over a backhand. You don't want to pull back in a straight line, and that's why.
Silvia does, and I think Michaela Mayer is going to make her pay for it.
Whether you're talking about counter hooks on the inside or straight punches coming in from the outside, I see a situation where it's going to be target practice for Michaela Mayer. That even though she's a newbie to this weight, she's going to fit right in, and she's going to give Silvia Bortot what for.
Silvia's not on her level.
En route to what I think will be a Natasha Jonas showdown up there at welterweight early next year.
They didn't land on this broad by accident. precedent. They want Michaela Mayer to acclimate to 140 pounds, but they want her to do it safely.
Sylvia Bortot, she can. It's been a long while. It's been a long time since Michaela Mayer scored a knockout. But at this new weight, feeling energized, feeling invigorated, not having to boil all the way down to 130 or 135, I think Michaela Mayer's jab, her accuracy,
She might be able to stop this broad.
because the defense is that poor, and at this new weight, Michaela Mayer, given her physical dimensions, she really does have room to fill out. So I've got Michaela Mayer, and I've got Michaela Mayer by way of knockout.
It's just a tick over, just a tune-up en route to a bigger fight. That's all it is.
Look for this on the undercard of Smith versus Eubank Jr. 2, the rematch. Men's Super Bantamweight news. Former Unified Super Bantamweight champion Stephen Fulton is anxious for revenge against Inoue. I can't wait to redeem myself against him. He wants a second fight. He wants a rematch. His competitive spirit beckons for one, though a rematch in and of itself is a ways out.
3, maybe 4 fights, 2, maybe 3 years.
You won't hear a peep out of Fulton in terms of making excuses. Instead, he sauntered to the nearest mirror he could find and took a good long look at himself. All in all, Fulton knows good and well that he needs to work harder than ever before. Come back stronger, better, and smarter, said Fulton on his social media account.
I applaud him for that. I think he showed a lot of character as a champion, and he's showing even more character in defeat.
The path to redemption is now firmly on the mind of Stephen Fulton. An immediate rematch is out of the question, but the slick-hitting star has a creative way of working his way back into the mix. First things first, Fulton is officially ditching the 122-pound division and will plant his flag 4 pounds north of it.
At featherweight.
From there, Fulton will look to snag a world title. Becoming a 2-division champion might be a dream of his, but more than anything, he views another championship run as the perfect bait. At some point, Fulton expects that the pound-for-pound luminary, Naoya Inoue, will move up in weight as well. When he does, Inoue's penchant for world titles will lead him right into Fulton's hands. I can't wait to redeem myself against him, said the former champion. Now at featherweight, the United Kingdom's own Lee Wood, he's got the WBA title. He's over there on the matchroom side of things, whereas Ray Vargas of Mexico, he's got the WBC. He's got the green belt, and he's at the PBC. So he's the champion most in arm's reach of Stephen Fulton.
You've got Cuba's own Robeisy Ramirez holding the WBO, and Mexico's own Luis Lopez holding the IBF. The both of those guys are over there at Top Rank.
While Stephen Fulton plots a course to featherweight and plans his revenge against Inoue, Naoya Inoue versus Marlon Tapales talks are ongoing for targeted undisputed championship bout in December.
Very recently, Floyd said he would like to see Naoya Inoue fight in America, not realizing he's already done that 3 times.
2 times in Vegas and once in California, Terrence Bud Crawford and Clarissa Shields are currently the only 2 fighters to fully unify 2 weight divisions in the 4-belt era. Naoya Inoue not only plans to join that short list of fighters, but accomplish the feat in considerably less time. Talks are ongoing for an undisputed junior featherweight championship bout between Inoue and Marlon Tapales. Both camps have confirmed to BoxingScene.com that there remains work to be done, but plenty of room for optimism for a 4-belt showdown, which is currently eyed for December in Tokyo.
And Inoue's native Japan, where he's a very, very big draw.
Making Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s request that he spend more time in America a bit of a redundancy. If you're already a big draw in your own neck of the woods, why would it be a requisite that you fight here in America? Americans don't watch super bantamweights and bantamweights that much anyway.
It's just more of that same God complex that he's got, the same God complex that a lot of Americans have when it comes to the sport of boxing.
They still think it's the 80s and the 90s where you have to cater to an American audience in order to make any money. Believe you me, this is not your father's era of boxing.
Wake up and smell the sushi.
Inoue holds the WBC and WBO titles. Tapales is the unified WBA and IBF titleist and is the only current major title holder from the Philippines, male or female. Both boxers won their belts earlier this year. Tapales claimed a 12-round split decision over previously unbeaten and unified titleist Mutajan Akhmadaliev on April 8th, San Antonio, Texas. More than 3 months later, Inoue dethroned previously unbeaten Stephen Fulton in a stunningly one-sided 8th-round stoppage.
And I did pick Inoue to win, but even I didn't think it was going to be that lopsided.
So we're seeing a demand now from a lot of bitter fight fans here in the United States. A bunch of sore losers who all of a sudden decided to get behind Stephen Fulton.
And I have nothing against Stephen Fulton, the fighter.
These fair weather fans who insisted that Inoue was some kind of manufactured hype job that decided to get behind Stephen Fulton on that predication.
They were wrong.
Now they're mad, and they're saying that unless Naoya Inoue spends more time in the United States, unless he fights more in America, he won't have their support. They won't be convinced. Not that he needs them to be.
He's already making more money than any American fighter at or around these weights without their support, which is why Stephen Fulton ended up going over there, because he knew what the fight was worth, and he knew there's no fight here in America worth what that fight was worth in Japan.
Inoue doesn't need your support. Inoue was just 7 months removed from his 11th round knockout of England's Paul Butler to fully unify the bantamweight division last December at the Ariake Arena. The win saw Inoue become the division's first undisputed champion in the 3 or 4 belt era and the first Asian boxer to accomplish the feat at any weight. There is now a chance he could become a 2-division undisputed king in the span of just 1 year.
And these bozos think Inoue needs their support.
They think he needs to spend more time in America because Floyd said so.
Who the fuck cares what Floyd said?
Let him go fight a dancing bear in one of those circus fights he's been fighting, and nobody gives a fuck what Floyd says.
Fuck him.
Inoue and Tapales are both free of mandatory challenger obligations, as none of the sanctioning bodies plan to order any such fights until their targeted undisputed clash. Inoue had a 2-fight plan to fully unify the division from the moment he moved up in weight earlier this year. Tapales made it easier after his win over Akhmadaliev when he immediately called for the Fulton Inoue winner and even entered into the ring to join Inoue after his annihilation of Fulton.
Inoue plans to stay at this weight for a bit. You know, he's only had 1 fight there. This would be his second. After that, there is the winner of the upcoming Nery versus Casimero fight. Those 2 former bantamweight champions, they're supposed to be fighting later on this year.
Luis Nery used to hold the WBC title at bantamweight, and John Riel Casimero, he used to hold the WBO. The both of those guys jointly are in the running for an Inoue fight, but they're not going to sit on their hands and wait for the phone to ring. They're going to take the competition out when they fight each other.
Narrow down the pool of options.
I like that mentality. Inoue versus Tapales will crown the first ever junior featherweight champion. The weight class was first introduced in the 1920s, but never gained traction. It was reintroduced in the 1970s, but has never had more than just a unified champion in the 47 years since its first title fight in 1976.
Oh yeah, Inoue has already made history in the bantamweight division as the first undisputed champion it's seen in the 4-belt era, and the first one it's seen in decades. If he becomes a 2-time undisputed champion at Super Bantam...
Oh yeah, he's making history. He's definitely making history, but he'll quite literally be the first undisputed champion that division has ever seen in the 4-belt era or any era.
Might go down in history as the greatest pugilist Japan has ever produced. The amount of history this guy's making.
Yet you still have slack-jawed Americans thinking that he needs to come here and cater to them in order to make it in the big time.
He's already big time, you idiot.
Japan is not a third world country.
Their money's just as green.
Last year was a very big year for the monster, but this year looks like it's going to be an even bigger one. If he can secure the W against Marlon Tapales,
if he can become a 2-time undisputed champion in that duration of time, and a 4-division champion overall,
might very well be the best boxer Japan has ever produced. Finally, in men's super middleweight news, Canelo Alvarez says, if I beat Crawford at 168, what are you going to say? That he's too small. The only potential stumbling block, the only hindrance I see in reference to a potential Alvarez versus Crawford fight is just that it takes 2 to tango, and it doesn't sound like Canelo's receptive to it.
Listen, there are people that deprive him of credit for unifying this entire weight class. You think they're going to give him credit for fighting a welterweight?
They don't want to give him credit for fighting the junior middle, Jermel Charlo. Canelo stated it's impossible because, like he said, if he were to beat Gervonta Davis, everybody's going to say, yeah, he's too small, and this and that, Alvarez said. So it's the same thing. I respect Crawford. He's a great fighter, but we're in different weight classes.
That's the problem, that Canelo's got to be receptive to the fight. Now, if Canelo isn't, what Terence Crawford can elect to do,
he can use his WBO Super Champion status to become Canelo's mandatory at 168. You heard that right. That's what that designation allows you to do. It allows you to move up in weight and become the mandatory challenger for the WBO champion at a weight of your choice.
The caveat is that Terence is still waiting on Errol Spence Jr.'s decision. is he going to activate that rematch clause or not?
If he's not, then Terrence can move forward with a bid to fight Canelo Alvarez, rather the win of Canelo versus Charlo at 168, and he can use his WBO Super Champion status to do it, to become the mandatory challenger for the winner of that fight.
He can force it.
Canelo remains insistent that fighting a welterweight, he's not going to get any credit for that. And if you're not interested in fighting Terrence Crawford, who are you going to fight after the Charlo fight?
He says his career has 4, maybe 5 more years.
Canelo Alvarez usually averages about 2 to 3 fights in one calendar year, too. So on that schedule, he has enough time left, that he could possibly face David Benavidez or Terrence Crawford the following year. He could do that.
He's not on the eve of retiring.
I think I have at least 4 more years in me, maybe 5. I've been a professional boxer since I was 15 years of age. This is almost 18 years fighting professionally. I always said I would retire when I was 36 or 37, around that age. That should be more than enough. It's so many years in boxing that by then I will have accomplished many things, and then I will have to enjoy my life and family and all, Canelo told The Breakfast Club.
You think he's got that long?
I think 4 to 5 years is a generous guesstimate. If I had to guess, I'd say Canelo has more like 3 to 4 years left to give the sport of boxing. And I think that's more than enough given everything he's already accomplished. He's already a 4-division champion. He's currently a reigning, undisputed champion. There's not that much left to do, not that much left to prove.
Even though he's younger than a lot of these guys, he's been in the sport longer than they have. Been in the sport of boxing longer than some boxers that are older than he is.
And most the same age as him, because he's been fighting as a professional since he was 15 years old.
Now, if he stays on his square 10 toes down and insists, he's not going to fight a welterweight because he won't get any credit for that, and Terrence is otherwise preoccupied, what that's going to result in is mounting pressure to face Benavidez.
David Benavidez, rather the winner of Benavidez versus Andrade, which is set to go down before this year is out in either the fall or winter months. That's supposed to be a pay-per-view.
Winner of the fight is WBC's interim champion.
What you're saying is that you're not going to fight the number 1 or number 2 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, depending on where you yourselves rate Terrence Crawford. If you're saying you're not going to do that because you won't get credit for fighting a smaller guy, the winner of that fight ain't a smaller guy.
Fight him.
Especially if it's David Benavidez, because that's the ideal fight to do on Cinco de Mayo of the following year. Canelo versus Benavidez. There has been a palpable demand, a growing demand for that fight. And if David beats Demetrius and you beat Charlo, you meet up next year in the very next super fight.
It's really only a super fight because of Canelo, though all the same, it is a super fight.
If you're not fighting Crawford, you've got to fight him.